I don't know about hating Rand, but he was scary enough anyway. All he did was sit on his horse looking at me, just outside the village, but I've never been so frightened in my life. Well, I looked away for just a moment. It wasn't easy, mind you, and then when I looked back, he'd vanished, blood and ashes. 3 days it's been, and I can hardly stop thinking about him. I keep looking over my shoulder. Matt attempted a laugh that came out as a croak. Funny how being scared takes you. You think strange things. I actually thought just for a moment it might be the Dark One. He tried another laugh, but no sound came out at all this time. Rand took a deep breath, as much to remind himself for any other reason he said, by rote. The Dark One and all the Forsaken are bound by the Shao Ghul. Beyond the Great Blight, bound by the Creator at the moment of the creation, bound until the end of time. The hand of the Creator shelters the world, and the light shines on us all. He drew another breath and went on. Besides, if he was free, what would the Shepherd of the Night be doing in Two Rivers, watching farm boys? I don't know, but I do know that rider was evil. Don't laugh, I'll take an oath on it. Maybe it was the dragon. You're just full of cheerful thoughts, aren't you? Rand muttered. You sound worse than Sen. My mother always said the Forsaken would come for me if I didn't mend my ways. If I ever saw anybody who looked like Ishmael or Agmar, it was him. Everybody's mother scared them with the Forsaken, Rand said dryly, but most grew out of it. Why not the Shadow Men while you're about it? Matt glared at him. I haven't been so scared since. No, I've never been that scared, and I don't mind admitting it. Me either. My father thinks I was jumping at shadows under the trees. Matt nodded glumly and leaned back against the cartwheel. So does my dad. I told Dave at Dowtree. They've been watching like hawks ever since. But they haven't seen anything. Now Alam thinks I was trying to trick him. Dave thinks he's down from Terran Ferry. A sheep stealer or a chicken thief. A chicken thief! He lapsed into an affronted silence. It's probably all foolishness anyway, Rand said finally. Maybe he is just a sheep stealer. He tried to picture it, but it was like picturing a wolf taking the cat's place in front of a mouse hole. Well, I didn't like the way he looked at me, and neither did you. Not if how you jumped at me is any guide. We ought to tell somebody. We already have, Matt, both of us. And we weren't believed. Can you imagine trying to convince Master Alver about this fellow without him seeing him? He sent us off to the Navi to see if we were sick. There are 2 of us now. Nobody could believe we both imagined it. Rand rubbed the top of his head briskly, wondering what to say. Matt was something of a byword around this village. Few people had escaped his pranks. Now his name came up whenever a wash line dropped the laundry in the dirt, or a loose saddle girth deposited a farmer in the road. Matt did not even have to be anywhere around. His support might be worse than none. After a moment, Rand said, Your father would believe you put me up to it, and mine. He looked over the cart to where Tam and Bran and Sen had been talking, and found himself staring his father in the eyes. The mayor was still lecturing Sen, who took it in now a sullen silence. Good morning, Matron, Tam said brightly, hefting one of the brandy casks to the side of the cart. I see you've come to help Bran unload the cider. Good lad. Matt leaped to his feet at the first word and began backing away. Good morning to you, Master Althor, and to you, Master Alver. Master Bew, may the light shine on you. My da sent me to... No doubt he did, Tam said. And no doubt since you are a lad who does his chores right off, you've finished the task already. Well, the quicker you lads get the cider into Master Alver's cellar, the quicker you can see the Gleeman. Gleeman, Matt exclaimed, stopping dead in his footsteps. At the same instant that Rand asked, When will he get here? Rand could ever remember 2 Gleemen coming into Two Rivers in his whole life, and for one of those he had been young enough to sit on Tam's shoulders to watch. To have one there actually during bell time, with his harp and his flute and his stories and all, Edmund's Field would still be talking about this festival 10 years off. Even if there were not any fireworks. Foolishness, Sen grumbled, but fell silently at a look from Bran that told him the weight of the mayor's office in it. Tam leaned against the side of the cart, using the brandy cask as a prop for his arm. Yes, a Gleeman, and already here, according to Master Alver. He's in a room in the inn right now. Arrived in the dead of the night, he did. The innkeeper shook his head in disapproval, pounded on the front door till he woke the whole family. If not for the festival, I'd have told him to stable his own horse and sleep in the stall with it, gleeman or not. Imagine coming in the dark like that. Rand stared wonderingly. No one traveled beyond the village by night. Not these days, certainly not alone. The Thatcher grumbled under his breath again, too low this time for Rand to understand more than a word or two. Madman and unnatural. He doesn't wear a black cloak, does he? Matt asked suddenly. Brand's belly shook with his chuckle. Black? His cloak is like every gleeman's cloak I've ever seen. More patches than cloak and more colors than you can think of. Rand startled himself by laughing out loud. A laugh of pure relief. The menacing black-clad rider as a gleeman was a ridiculous notion. But he clapped a hand over his mouth in embarrassment. You see, Tam, Brand said, there's been little enough laughter in this village since winter came. Now even the gleeman's cloak brings a laugh. That alone is worth expensive bringing him down for Barrelon. Say what you will, son spoke up suddenly. I still say it's a foolish waste of money. And those fireworks you all insist on sending off for? So there are fireworks, Matt said, but Sen went right on. They should have been here a month ago with the first peddler of the year. But there hasn't been a peddler, has there? If he doesn't come by tomorrow, what are we going to do with them? Hold another festival just to set him off? That's if he even brings them, of course. Sen, Tam sighed, you've as much trust as a Terran ferryman. Where is he, then? Tell me. Tell me that, Althor. Why didn't you tell us, Matt demanded in an aggrieved voice. The whole village would have had as much fun with the waiting as with the gleeman. Or almost, anyway. You see how everybody's been over just a rumor of fireworks. I can see, Bran replied with a sidelong look at Thatcher. And if I knew for sure how that rumor started, if I thought for an instant that someone had complaining about how much things cost where people could hear them, then things are supposed to be a secret. Sen cleared his throat. My bones are too old for this wind. If you don't mind, I'll just see Mistress Alver. Won't fix me some mulled wine and take the chill off. Mayor Althor? He was headed for the inn before he finished, and as the door swung shut behind him, Bran sighed. Sometimes I think the Na'vi is right about, well, that's not important now. You young fellows think for a minute everyone's excited about the fireworks? True. And that's only at a rumor. Think of how they'll be if the peddler doesn't get here in time, after all they're anticipating. And with the weather the way it is, who knows when he will come? They'd be 50 times excited about a gleeman, and feel 50 times as bad if he didn't come. Bran said slowly. Even bell time might not do much for people's spirits after that. You've had a head on your shoulders when you choose to use it, Bran said. He'll follow you on the village council one day, Tam. Mark my words. He couldn't do much worse right now than someone I could name. None of this is unloading the cart, Tam said briskly. Handing the first cask of brandy to the mayor, I want a warm fire, my pipe, and a mug of your good ale. He hoisted the second brandy cask on his shoulder. I'm sure Rand will thank you for your help, matron. Remember, the sooner the cider is in the cellar. As Tam and Bran disappeared into the inn, Rand looked at his friend. You don't have to help. Dave won't keep me that badger long. Oh, why not? Matt said resignedly. Like your dad said, the quicker it's in the cellar. Picking up one of the casks of cider in both arms, he hurried toward the inn in a half-trot. Maybe Egwene is around. Watching you stare at her like the Pollock's ox will be as good as a badger any day. Rand paused in the act of putting his bow and quiver in the back of the cart. He really had managed to put Egwene out of his mind. That was unusual in itself. But she would likely be around the inn somewhere. There was not much chance he could avoid her. Of course, it had been weeks since he last saw her. Well, Matt called from the front of the inn. I didn't say I would do it by myself. You aren't on the village council yet. With a start, Rand took up a cask and followed. Perhaps she would not be there after all. Oddly, that possibility did not make him feel any better.